Hello, everyone.
Hello.
No.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh. Can you see Tolega? Can you see me?
Greetings.
Who's
Okay.
speaking now?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Thea. Good to see you guys.
Hi, everyone.
To see
Hi, Tia. Why am I not appearing here?
If you click on your video, you will appear.
I think before we start, let's put some ground rules for the discussion. May I please ask, you will see either in the left-hand corner or on the right-hand side, you will see a button that will say mute.
Yes.
I want everybody please to press the mute button. That will help in case your dog bark or the children are screaming in the background or somebody is mixing a cake. So it will just help with some background noise management.
Okay.
So if everybody please can mute yourself. Now, if you want to speak, on your section, you would be able to raise a hand. So you will see yourself in the participant section and you would be able to raise a hand. And if your hand is raised, that will give us an idea that you want to contribute or want to speak. I also would like to ask the participants if you do have your video to share that, that we can have a really interactive discussion with one another, seeing each other face to face. And I think what we are doing at the moment will also give us an idea of how our students might feel when we interact with them in an online classroom. I'm seeing Guy Harris. Hello, Guy. You say you're just an observer. Never. Charles, welcome. Adelaide, I've seen your message. Hi, Prof. Moyo. Seen you as well. Thank you for joining us. I've got Prof. Moyo, who is the DDC of Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Research at DUT. Hands is raised.
Sorry, Thea, can you hear me? Thank you so much. I was just going to say my video is not clear because I'm facing against the sun, even though there's no sun. So I'll switch it off with your permission. Is that okay?
Thank you, Prof, for joining us.
You can hardly see anything. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
We see a radiant light behind you, Prof.
Oh yeah. But it's sort of wet.
Okay.
Yeah, raining.
So let's mute ourselves. Welcome to the EDHE Entrepreneurship Development in Higher Education Community of Practice of Development in Entrepreneurship for Academia. We are in a very unique, extraordinary time where our social order has absolutely changed, and it also changed the way of how community of practice need to observe the way how we teach, learn entrepreneurship, and the way how we research entrepreneurship. Now, just to put EDHE in context, entrepreneurship development in higher education umbrellas under USAF, Universities of South Africa, and all 26 public universities in South Africa belong to USAF. That also umbrellas under the Department of Higher Education. Now, the body of EDHE got 3 different types of community of practice. The first one is the COP to develop student entrepreneurs. The second community of practice is the development of entrepreneurial universities. And the third community of practice is this one, development of entrepreneurship in academia. Now, myself is the national convener. I'm located within University of KwaZulu-Natal, College of Law and Management, School of Management, Information Technology and Governance, Discipline of Management and Entrepreneurship. My co-convener is Wise Samba, located at UNISA. Wise, if you would please introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wise. I'm based in Pretoria at UNISA as a co-convener for the academia. Nice to meet you.
Okay. To get the conversation going of today's theme, sharing practice to move online with entrepreneurship teaching methods and student experience, I've asked 3 individuals to start sharing their experiences. The reality is this workshop is not a this is how we're going to do it, because this is how we're going to do it is evolving as we are speaking. Our current situation didn't come with a textbook and PowerPoint slides on how are we going to react when we face a global disaster and we need to readjust. So we are actually underpinning our own epistemology as we're going. So if you joined the meeting and thought you're going to get a 10-point plan of how we're going to succeed, this is not it. So we've asked 3 individuals to share their current experiences, different levels of institutional view. We've asked Prof. Sandile Sonka. He's the DVC of Teaching and Learning at University of KwaZulu-Natal. He will speak about the bigger picture lens to remobilize an institute to online platforms and describe 3 possible scenarios when planning for our students' return. Second individual, we asked for Professor Shepherd Delwayo. He's a campus coordinator at UJ. Prof. Delwayo has been in the Entrepreneurship Scholarship for over 20 years. I've been reading him for a long time. He'll be speaking about how to coordinate a cluster of lecturers to deliver online entrepreneurship teaching and learning following COVID-19 and successes and barriers he's experiencing. And then we've got Prof. Richard Shambari, first from University of Venda, now at University of Western Cape. He will give us a teacher's perspective on how the reality affects undergraduate teaching and learning of entrepreneurship and how our students are experiencing it and successes and barriers we are facing. After we've got these individuals to share their experience, I can ask you guys to unmute and we can open with questions and then go into a joint discussion to share our experiences. I would like to start with Prof. Richard to give us a sharing on how you experience going online in entrepreneurship teaching and learning at the moment at University of Western Cape, and what are your students giving as feedback? Prof. Shambari, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Tia, and good afternoon to everybody. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you.
I'm not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So I think it has been quite a trying time for everybody, and I've just prepared a brief PowerPoint slide. Hopefully technology will not let me down here. So, okay. Okay, so in essence, I think one of the issues that we might want to take a look at is also just to understand where we are and also look at where we came from and where we are going. So COVID-19 is the crisis that we find ourselves, dealing with today. And in previous years, we didn't have COVID-19, and there's nothing that we could learn from. So it's like we are building our own plane and flying it at the same time. But one thing that we also need to be able to understand that it's not the last crisis that we're going to deal with in our lifetime as we move on. So these crises are going to come in, maybe more frequently, maybe even much more disastrous than the current COVID-19. But then the common understanding which we have been seeing is that it has been largely a negative perception. But what we have also seen and interacting with students, and one of the things that we have done at UWC is we have brought in students into the debate. And once we brought in students, we were very open to them to say, look, we are in this together. We cannot pretend to you that we know the situation or the solution and we know what tomorrow is going to look like. So if you have other issues that you think we could do, guys, this is the platform from which we could all collaborate, all work with. And one thing that we saw that it is actually an opportunity. So this COVID-19 is really an opportunity for us and for the students. I'm sure all of us, you would understand that we always practice, always preach that our teaching philosophies have to be student-centered, student-driven. It is not only about teaching in the classroom where a lecturer or a teacher stands in the classroom with a chalk in hand and teaching students. Guess what? What we have been praying for, what we have been wishing for is here, it is now where we are. For one reason or another, we are not going to be able to teach and to stand in front of that classroom. So those teaching philosophies that we sometimes would write and on our CVs and as we apply for jobs, we now need to leave them. One other thing that we also indicated was that, which is very clear, is that the classroom is not the only avenue or vehicle for teaching. And again, also the internet, because it seems as the most logical aspect, remember we, as people, we always want to think in black and white and sometimes also forget the gray areas. So if we cannot teach in the classroom, the next alternative or next best alternative is the internet for online teaching. And but remember, there is also these other aspects of distance education, all these other varieties which we need to come through. So that might not be enough. There's a lot that we can get in, and I'll talk about them as we progress. The other third point that we also see is that maybe also within, more so within entrepreneurship than in others, that it is time for us to be able to revisit our curriculum. If you understand most of the curricula that we had in entrepreneurship, the changes in curriculum take a bit of time. Now, what we used to teach and how we used to teach might no longer be relevant. And it is also not possible for us to teach that kind of material when we are not able to have students. And also the assessments that we used to do. We used to have invigilators. We used to have invigilation where you walk in a venue to see what students are doing. we need now to rethink in terms of what we are doing. And what is quite interesting about all this is that entrepreneurship is about opportunity identification and exploiting opportunity. And this is where we now have as teachers. So if we look at entrepreneurship, fundamentally entrepreneurship is about two things: about solutions, trying to find solutions, and at the same time trying to create value, both for the entrepreneur and for the demand side. Everybody's looking for value. And then entrepreneurship education, at the end of the day, it's about trying to create a heart set and a mindset within the students, right? One of it is we need to have calm entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs that persevere in the face of destruction, in the face of COVID-19. At the end of the day, we also need entrepreneurs that can make decisions. Whether those decisions are good or bad, that's another discussion. We need decisions, and we'll need to learn from that particular aspect. Creativity is at the hotbed or central to entrepreneurship. Value creation and also optimizing that value. Continuous learning. These are the things that we need to be instilling. So the question maybe that we might need to ask is like what Tia indicated is, we don't have all the answers. I also do not have all the answers. Were we teaching these 4 issues in our current curriculum just before COVID-19, to what extent were we teaching the mindset, the creativity, the value, as well as continuous learning? Or I would think that in most cases, we were just saying, I am the teacher, I know everything, listen to me, and I will examine you on this one here. And the reason to that here is, if we look in the history of venture creations and entrepreneurship, a case study of Facebook. Facebook was almost killed by a university. Harvard University almost destroyed Facebook because this is where universities are not in sync with entrepreneurship. How many Facebooks have we closed in our universities? How many Facebooks have we closed with our curriculum and with our policies that are not keeping up with the trends of the times? And this is where I think introspection in terms of COVID-19 would help us. One of the critical things I've just also, tried to separate the issues in terms of looking at entrepreneurship education. And the first one is looking at the educator, me and you, the people that deliver education as well as the universities. One of the things that we quickly found is that we cannot pretend that we are all wise and we are all knowing. Our knowledge is limited. Our knowledge has certain limits that we need to be able to open up and also to engage with the student as well as with the other people that are practicing entrepreneurship. We need to create an ecosystem with that. We are only just co-creators of knowledge. The other co-creators are the students, which are the most important stakeholders, government, other universities, as well as other people, entrepreneurs within the marketplace. And one of the critical aspects is amongst ourselves as academics, we need now to embrace lifelong learning, not just as an academic rhetoric, but we need to begin living that. From that, we are teaching entrepreneurship and what is the entrepreneurial environment, because at the end of the day, our output is the student. Where is the student going to be after we have taught them? They are going to be in an environment in the marketplace. That marketplace has changed. The world today is no longer what it used to be when we started the year. It is now a laboratory. This lab has unknown bounds. We don't even know what it's going to look like. We know, yes, the president told us that he's extending it by 14 days. Tomorrow we could wake up, he says, another 14 days to the, to that extension. Or we are going to change this thing. So we constantly have to be on the ball. And we need to be able to think in terms of solving those whatever problems that we come up. And one of the critical things is that the university cannot die. Teaching cannot die. Entrepreneurship needs to be able to go through. What are these new needs that we need to be able to understand? What does society want? What do people want? What is the marketplace? How can we quantify? And how could we measure? And how can we observe all these things here? And what is valuable to people in terms of what they need? Because all of these, remember, when you do a business and business planning, there's all these other aspects of feasibility studies. What does that mean when we talk about these things? And how could we put these in terms of teaching and learning? Then the student themselves. This student lives in the lab, they work in the lab, and we are also preparing the student for that living lab. After the lab, and this is the lab here, what I'm talking about here is within the teaching environment. Where do we want them to go? What do we want our entrepreneurship students to be? We need to be quite vocal and quite precise about that, because that would also enable us to define what we could do. Hence, those other spaces there, I think maybe as we move along, we'll also fill those gaps there. The future is today, and it's a very uncertain future with all its uncertainties which we need to do. Some of the lessons that we learned yesterday, they are not applicable, but they are quite valuable for us to move forward. Yesterday's competitive advantages may not be applicable today and tomorrow. They need to be repackaged. Businesses are no longer the same. As you go to a shop today, you are going to be standing 1 meter, 2 meters before the other person there. Rent, you still have to pay. Expenses, you still have to pay. How do you negotiate these contracts with all these? And how do we teach that to be able to adapt to that? One of the critical things that I think we should not forget here is let's engage the student for 2 reasons. Number one, they live in the society that we're trying to change. The students are the ones that we are trying to change. And we have also declared that we want to have a student-driven education. So we need to have these students join in the debate. So just in conclusion, we have learned that the classroom is a good vehicle. It has its advantages and disadvantages. The internet is also another good platform for which we could change and shape our thinking. EDHI, as we are now congregated around or within Zoom, is also another part where we could extend learning. Blackboard has been also one of these levers, tools that we've leveraged teaching and learning, but it's not enough. EDHI is not enough. The classroom is not enough. Internet is again not enough, because students in remote areas, even if they had widespread internet access, the cost factor to it will limit them. Devices would limit them. So now we are now moving towards to something maybe that, for a lack of a better term, online mediated learning. So whereby lecturers would come online, create content offline, put that content, deposit that content online. Students get that content, go offline, work with it, and then submit that information again. So these are some of the things that we need to be able to look at and to think about. So from there, the future is open for us to what we want, to what we all need. I think I will pause there. Tia. Thank you.
Prof. Richards, thank you for sharing your perspectives.
Yes.
And thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we all got some questions that we would like to ask, but I want to move on to Prof. Shepherd Dilwayu. If we can, Prof. Dilwayu, where are you? Okay, Prof, if you can. There we go. I see you, Prof.
All right.
If we can have keep it to about 5 minutes, please, 5 to 7 minutes to share your wisdom.
All right.
Richard, form a good baseline there.
Okay, no, that's fine. I don't know whether everyone can see me and the background. It's rather dark where I am here. It's about to rain. Okay. All right, fine. Okay, I'll share briefly with everyone the current situation from a coordination point of view. So I'm currently coordinating a number of modules, say about more than 30 modules for what we refer to mainly as service subject. I'm from the Department of Business Management. So the Department of Business Management offers a number of entrepreneurship modules to different other departments within the university. So we offer entrepreneurship to, maybe if I can refer to as the whole university, and I'm responsible for the Doornfontein campus, what we call the DFC campus. And that's where most of the non-management or non-common subjects reside. This is where you have your engineering, your health sciences, your built faculties. So I'm responsible for that. And we offer these entrepreneurship courses to all those departments or all those faculties, okay, in one way or the other. So with the advent of the current problems we have, what has happened maybe in terms of successes, which I'm supposed to highlight. In terms of successes, what has happened is, at least I can say we have been successful in the sense that the teaching and learning has managed to carry on as directed maybe by the head of the university and maybe the department. Then secondly, also as a head, a coordinator, it means then I'm to a great extent a head of department. So I'm the link between our department and the respective departments which we serve. So for example, we offer entrepreneurship to chemical engineering, to mechanical engineering, to sports management, to health sciences, chiropractic students, almost everyone within the university. So you'll see that depending on the module or depending on the department, the packaging of the different entrepreneurship programs also differ. So as a link now between my department and other department, it means now whatever we decide or whatever those other respective departments decide on in terms of how the course is supposed to be run, how we interact with the students, then I come in between those respective heads of department, our department, and the student. And that's the critical role I play, or the critical role the coordinator does. If there are any problems, if there are industry interventions, problems from the students, problems from the staff, whatever the issues might be, communication from my department, communication from the other department, communication from the students. That's the linkage part I play. So when it comes to the current problem now, the key element has been that we continued with the classes, obviously offline or sorry, online. Then the communication now from the department has to pass through to the students, and we've managed to do that. Maybe if I can call it, the directive from the university was that, as I indicated earlier on, lectures should continue. But then the key efforts or the key challenge would be or was on whether the lecturers will be able to do online teaching, be able to prepare the material, be able to offer the classes so that everything continues. And I can easily or safely say they've managed to do that. They've been creative enough to be able to carry on with that. In terms of interventions, the interventions also would be different depending on the nature of the classes, like I indicated earlier on. Is it a class where maybe students have to go out and sell items as part of their entrepreneurship program? Or is it a class where maybe the student has to go out and collect information maybe from the municipal or municipality or a municipal council? Or is it a situation where maybe you can collect data online and maybe compile your portfolios? Okay, so depending on all that, what I've done or what we've done is to leave all that to the lecturers. And given their own initiatives, they've managed to do that. What can be said or what I have observed maybe as a problem at this point in time is that we haven't managed to get the feedback from the students in terms of whether everything is running smoothly. Because the way we've been operating is if no one raises an issue, then you just assume everything is running smoothly. If someone raises an issue, then you address that particular issue as well. And as a coordinator, all I've managed to do would be to interact with, now and then interact with the lecturers to say, is everything going on well? Then obviously they'll say, yeah, it's fine. We are carrying on. After some time, maybe before there was no lockdown, so you'd think, okay, maybe we'll still be able to go to the office and operate from the office and work from the office. Then after that, there was a lockdown. Now we can't go to the office. So emails, platforms like this one now are what we are using to check. But the key problem, which I've already pointed out, is the actual feedback from students. We have assignments which have been due. They've managed to submit the assignment. But did they face any problems with the assignments, with collecting the data or not? And like I said, also, there are certain assignments where the students are supposed to be on the ground, interacting with entrepreneurs. They're supposed to be on the ground, collecting information for their portfolios. With the lockdown, it means they haven't managed to do that. And it then comes to the respective lecturers to say, if now you can't go and collect the information, what do you do? Okay, and we have left that up to the respective lecturers. And obviously, because we are not sure as to when the lockdown will end, everyone, I think, still has hope that it might end, say, end of May or end of April. Then it means as soon as it ends, then maybe we can then catch up on whatever we could have done and we didn't manage to do. Or maybe if students wanted more time to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe to get on the ground to do whatever they're supposed to do, maybe we'll be able to to do that, or they will have time to do that and catch up. And because of that uncertainty, and maybe that hope that it will finish earlier, we still think, or we still hope we will be able maybe to catch up, given maybe that in June, July, we would be having a break, which was obviously built into the current academic year. And also, if maybe we can't, we still have another week or two, the normal week or two in September, September, which we can utilize. And also, if maybe that doesn't work out, we still have November, and maybe we can extend into end of December to catch up, because it's something which we didn't expect to happen. And even now, in terms of planning, we are not sure what will happen. We are not sure of the future. So it becomes difficult to plan. I think I will end up there. Thank you.
Shepherd, thank you so much for sharing on what it must feel like sitting in the middle as a campus coordinator between the lecturers and the students and the top management. And I wish you all the best with challenging decision making for your current position. I want to move on to the bigger picture perspective. We've asked Prof. Sandile Sonka to join us to give a reflection on that. I did receive a message that he is currently engaged in a different meeting. Let me just check if Prof. Sonka has joined us yet. Nope. I can see two other university DVCs in this meeting. Maybe I can put one of you on the spot to perhaps move on to the topic to say a bigger picture lens to remobilize an institute to online platforms. What possible scenarios can we expect for student return? And what are successes and barriers that we are experiencing? Prof. Moyo, Prof. Deresh, are any of you willing to be put on the spot to share?
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm not too sure if you can hear me here.
Thank you, Prof. Deresh.
I actually joined hoping that Sandile was going to give his presentation. In fact, we just came out of a executive leadership meeting a few minutes ago, where Sandile was presenting in terms of exactly what you're talking about. It's about the big picture with regards to how tertiary institutions are going to have to look at going online. I think it's not a matter of us making a decision in that regard. We have to. The sustainability of our tertiary institutions is dependent on us making this move. So I think please bear with me. I have obviously not prepared a presentation according to what Sandile would have done with regards to this particular topic. But I think, let me give you a summary of what Sandile would have spoken about. So I think COVID-19 has come at a time where it's caught a number of tertiary institutions, caught them out in terms of migrating their platforms to online. And there are a number of challenges that I think that we have as tertiary education institutions in this country. And maybe to start off, the first one probably is got to do with the fact that we have poor access to internet connection. And we also got a cohort of students that may not be as techno-savvy as we would like them to be. So we are expecting to migrate our students to a platform which is technically, let's just say, more advanced than what we've actually set them up to do from secondary school. And this particular challenge isn't one that's unique to South Africa. Now, if you've been watching CNN over the last couple of weeks, you would have heard that the challenges with regards to moving education online is also being faced by first world countries. So the United States, for example, is having a very similar challenge in terms of moving to online teaching and learning. And it depends on where the individuals come from a socioeconomic point of view in society that determines the access that they would have to online facilities. So it's about the infrastructure, it's the hardware, the access to devices that can enable them to go online, but also in terms of the network coverage that we would have in the country. Now, I'm not too sure how it is with the other tertiary institutions, but at UKZN, something like 70% of our students are from quintile 1 to 3 schools. And if you break that out even further, the majority of them actually come from rural schools. And if you had to geo-map, for example, the rural schools that they come from, and you look at the network coverage that we have as a country in terms of 3G or even 2G coverage, you're going to find that there's going to be significant difficulties in them getting access just to an internet connection via Wi-Fi, not even just Wi-Fi coverage, but also network coverage that we would have amongst our major suppliers of communications, the MTNs, the Vodacoms, and so forth. So I think these are the kind of challenges that we're going to face. Then again, if you look at the socioeconomic challenges that they're going to have in their homes, a lot of them come from homes where it's not conducive to going online. There are multiple people in a single room. So how do you actually create a conducive environment for them to go online in that regard? They come from communities and from municipalities where some of them don't even have electrification, meaning there's no electricity to drive and to power devices that we want them to connect up to the network. So these are all the kind of challenges that we are going to face. One of the things that we're going to do very, very rapidly is we're going to find out what is the coverage that we actually do have in the country with regards to cellular coverage, and what is the access to devices that our students have, and what percentage of our students would we be able to cater for in terms of going online. So yes, it sounds fantastic. The technology is there for us to do it. Unfortunately, the infrastructure, from a cellular infrastructure point of view, the municipal infrastructures that may be available in the rural areas, and the access to technological devices are going to be some of the challenges that we're going to be facing with regards to going online. So it's not so much, I think, the institutions having infrastructure and institutions having the will to want to go online, but it's actually whether our students have that access as well. So I think that's going to be one of the major challenges that we're going to face. When you look at what the president and the ministerial task team on COVID-19 have been talking about, it doesn't look like that we're going to be going back to class anytime soon. The lockdown was extended until the end of April. And I think if you heard Professor Abdul Karim's presentation last night on the news networks, you would have seen that they're only expecting it to peak in this country around August, September. So I think, if we do get out of a lockdown, it's going to be a kind of a soft lockdown anyway that's going to have to take place, meaning that we, as tertiary institutions and as educational institutions, may still need to have some sort of lockdown ourselves. So we're not going to solve the problem by saying that let's get all our students back into the residences, and then because we have network coverage and infrastructure in our residences, that we'll be able to still have a bit of social distancing, and students can then join up from their residence rooms. So I think those are also going to be some of the challenges that we're going to face. But what we've done, started to look at UKZN, we started to look at 3 scenarios, and I think Sandile and his team have been working with regards to 3 scenarios. Scenario 1 is that everything goes exceptionally well, COVID-19 is under control, and that we can get back to class come early May. And then I think it's about how do we actually supplement all of the, should we say, the teaching and learning in terms of time that we have lost, and how do we actually make up that time. And that'll be in a kind of a normal classroom environment, but supplemented with online materials and materials that will be available online. So I think that's one scenario. The other scenario was whereby you more than likely would lose 1 semester. And that scenario is looking very likely now in terms of the predictions that the COVID-19 team at the ministerial level have been kind of predicting in terms of when COVID-19 will peak in this country. And the third scenario was basically whereby you lose the entire academic year. So I think those are the kind of scenarios. Scenario 2 and scenario 3, if there's any way that you're going to have to salvage a semester or salvage an academic year, then it's going to have to be done via going online. But bear in mind that going online, depending on the socioeconomic backgrounds of the students that we have at our institutions, we are going to have those challenges that I've laid out a bit earlier in terms of getting access for them to online materials. So I think that those are the big pictures that we've got to start looking at as leadership in terms of the higher education space. I think we got some serious barriers with regards to going online, and those barriers are a lot higher for students that come from socially and economically disadvantaged communities. And we also got to have the challenges with regards to whether our infrastructure as a country can actually cope with all of us going online and having the network coverage in particular in deep rural communities and deep rural areas. And in our institution at UKZN, majority of our students do come from these deep rural communities and areas where there is a lack of coverage in terms of telecommunications. So I think, unfortunately, I won't have been able to give you the full kind of presentation that Sandile would have been able to, but hopefully I've been able to give you at a high level a summary of some of the thinking that's been taking place at UKZN, and I'm sure at all the other tertiary institutions. And unfortunately, I think some of us are going to be, as tertiary institutions, are going to find it a lot more difficult than some of the more, should we say, advantaged institutions in the country, where they may have a majority of their students that come from quintile 4 and 5 schools and backgrounds would have greater access to being able to going online. So I think you're going to find that it's going to be a different approach by the various tertiary institutions, depending on the quintile groupings of students that are in their particular institutions. So I think, you're going to find that the solution is going to be varied across the higher education spectrum. And I think it's not inconceivable that some of the tertiary institutions that don't have the infrastructure, but also have a large proportion of students that come from communities that just would not be able to go online may have to sacrifice semesters and the academic year.
Prof. Therese, that is quite an impactful message for us to think of on what the implications will be for us teaching entrepreneurship and going forward, and not only planning the way how we deliver our pedagogy, but how we plan our life forward. Thank you, Prof. Therese. He's the DVC of Research, Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, stepping in for his DVC colleague, Prof. Sandile Sonka, the DVC of Teaching and Learning, for giving a bigger picture perspective. Briefly counting, we are currently united in, I've counted 17 different institutes saying hello to each other via Zoom. And for this community of practice, this is something wonderful to me. We've extended the invitation initially to the COP for academic development. However, with us in the Zoom group are some practitioners who owns a higher education institute where they present entrepreneurship online training. And we've got several colleagues here from the operations side that host the incubator or the accelerator or the entrepreneurship help desk. We've got Charles Bolton. He is a practitioner who've asked if he can briefly share us, and we've only got till 4 o'clock. So Charles, we can give you a minute and a half. He would like to share a different angle on outside a university space, what they've been doing in the private sector to present online entrepreneurship training. Charles, are you still here?
Hi, Tia. Yes, I am.
There we go.
Thank you for the opportunity. Basically, look, this is a very interesting and a challenging opportunity for us all in the entrepreneurship and education space. The input I want to bring to the table is basically from a global perspective. We work in over 22 countries around the world at my foundation, and the problem everybody's facing, as Prof. Derish mentioned, it's global. It's not just with us. This is a problem that's being discussed around the world with many institutions and many education departments around the planet as well. And the thing is, though, there are tools available that we can use, sure, but the strain on those tools sometimes makes it more difficult than manageable. And I think what we need to do, and this is everywhere around the world, the thinking is to collaborate, is to share the resources that we have, not for the sake of promoting anything specific, but we're all in the same boat, in the same scenario. And I think we need to collaborate more and share our communities of practice more amongst each other, and develop a solution that's specific to our region and with our challenges, as we all know. Although we share a lot of these challenges with other countries, we've got a unique environment that we have to work within, and we need to be able to deliver and educate within that environment. And I think that's the only message that I want to bring, is to offer solutions that we've all got. We've all got something that we've worked with in the past. At the Wadwani Foundation, we are currently developing a sort of community of practice with information that we're gathering from around the world to share with everybody who wants access to this information, we don't want to keep it to ourselves. It's a matter of collaborating and promoting, the best tools, the best platforms, the best community of practices out there. That's it from my side.
Thank you so much, Charles. I've looked earlier into your foundation, and the technologies that you have and the way of delivery seems very interesting. We've got 5 minutes left. I want to, if possible, one of our EDHE co-conveners that work in a center for entrepreneurship, that work with a practical entrepreneurial training with the skills and the tool set. Charlene, Poppet, Nadia, any of you available to quickly jump in and give a perspective? Charlene, your name is up here on the top.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Tia. I think it's very difficult. It's something that we're trying to wrap our heads around, particularly from a practical perspective. A lot of the work that we do within the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation is also working with small business owners. And like Tarish shared earlier on, we, as an example, I want to just explain by giving an example. We have a contract with the Master Builders Association of South Africa where we train 30 small building contractors annually. Right now, we are unable to communicate via email with any of those potential participants on our program, simply because people don't have access to the internet. They don't have access to data, Wi-Fi, and it's become extremely difficult to communicate to people, particularly people within the informal sector. It's a huge concern. A lot of the work that we do around development is on that sector. And as we know, the potential within the informal sector is huge. It's a sector that can contribute to the jobs that we talk about in the National Development Plan. It's a sector that needs to be looked at in terms of bylaws and policy. And it's a great opportunity to see the sector being exposed right now, but how we work in that sector, there's quite a lot of interesting discussions and debates happening at this time around that. I don't have enough time to dig into all of that, but I think it's just something that we need to be aware of, that I see it as an opportunity for us to think differently about how we engage within different sectors. With our students in terms of student entrepreneurship, at our university, we did a survey. I'm a bit for words. We did a survey to see how many of our students had access to the kinds of challenges that Darish expressed earlier on, and only 51% of our students responded. So either that could mean that the other 49% don't have access, which is a huge concern because we're talking about half the student base. So the student entrepreneurs that we work with, we're engaging them online using the various tools like the ones that Wadwani spoke about earlier on. We're working with online internships, and at another time, Tia, maybe we can talk at length about some of those opportunities. Yeah, just wanted to touch on some of the things that we are doing. But from a practical perspective, it's really difficult. And I'm sure that students in clinical fields have similar challenges where, it needs to be more experiential. And it would be very interesting to have a discussion around that at another point. But I'm going to stop there. Thank you, Tia.
Thank you so much, Charlene, the director for the Center of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the University of the Western Cape. Charlene, do I have your center name correct? Where a lot of practical entrepreneurship development is taking place, and much more hands-on type of learning. I would have loved to for us all to engage in Q&A, but I see the clock is ticking towards 5, and I'm sure some of you are saying that we at EDHE are keeping you out of your afternoon tea, and you might have a rumbling for the dinner building up. However, I would like to give my colleague Wise opportunity for a closing word, and then in final we've got Dr. Nora Clark, who is the director of EDHE, which would just like to have a final address to this community of practice. I just want to say thank you for everybody joining. I'm feeling kind of hopeful, seeing so many different institutes uniting, and if we can come together and engage amongst ourselves throughout the country, maybe there's hope for my group that's 500 students big and 19 years old to get them through the year. There is no 10-point plan. Thank you so much. Wise, may I go over to you, and
okay.
then on to Dr. Clark.
Okay, thank you, Thea. I think you covered everything. I actually went offline. Apologies. The global challenge came straight to my PC, and then the virus came, and then all of a sudden it went blank. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. I think, more time would have done justice. However, if you have any contribution or something, our LinkedIn page is up and running, and then please go into the ED LinkedIn page. Share your practice. I understand there is a lot of conversation among universities, departments on the way forward on this. Obviously, this 1 hour wouldn't have brought all the solutions, but obviously if you've got something happening at your institution, please share with us.
Thank you, Wise.
Thank you.
Dr. Clark.
Very briefly, thank you, Dr. van der Westhuizen, and colleagues. Just a very, very brief word here. I think what this community of practice for entrepreneurship development in academia has now pulled off here was, in my opinion, it was probably an experiment to see, is there a need for a discussion like this? And I think what your engagement here has highlighted that this is just the beginning. And I see that there are so many questions, so many issues that you've raised. I've been copying and pasting a separate document with your questions and your comments. And we would like to bring that back to you in future discussions. If you see value in this, and if you want to engage further, please let us know. And I want to salute Tia and Wise for your leadership in putting this together and seeing the need, seeing the shared crisis in our universities, and for taking the lead in putting this together. Thank you very much, everyone. And then I want to just quickly offer one or two other opportunities. So I wanted to say, with all of us having to learn to become masters in camera work all of a sudden, I wanted to offer the services of a young colleague with good camera experience, and who shares, she sees to the training of our own team in terms of online meetings. If you'd like for us to have an online meeting and for it's a lady by the name of Linda to share her 30-minute presentation with you and your team in terms of the do's and don'ts of online meetings, please let us know. It's a free service that's available to you. And then something else that I wanted to say is we were contemplating having the Lekgotla this year, the EDHE Lekgotla virtually, and we were thinking it might be difficult. It looks like it's going to be not an option, but it's going to be an imperative probably. We'll make a final decision next week. But the point is, what you've demonstrated today is that this kind of engagement can work. So thank you also very much for doing this. I hope that you will give us an indication of whether you would like further similar discussions. And a big thank you again, Tia and Wise.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And from Durban, rainy afternoon. Thanks for joining, and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.
Please remember to post your questions so we can copy and paste. I will keep it running for a bit more if you want to keep on engaging.
Thanks.
yes, Tia, I think, so you're going to keep this running so that we can engage a bit with other people, huh?
Yes, I'm keeping this open. So for those, we said 4 o'clock. For those that want to stay for the after party, you're welcome.
All right.
You can unmute and we can chat.
Thank you from Yunisa Watson Razani. I wrote some few comments. I realized time is running out and I will be zooming out. Thank you so much for organizing this. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Steve from
So people are, are there any,
sorry.
people are leaving. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello.
We're done. I'm keeping the room open if for those that want to stay and engage.
All right.
Tia, I wanted to say that one of the things we've done at DUT is to shift some of the more practical classes into a second semester and try and transfer theoretical, the more theoretical